So welcome to today's YouTube. So we're going to be speaking to my mum. Of course, I was 13 when I first fell ill with my chronic illnesses, and we're going to talk a lot about my journey and in particular my struggle with my mental health during that time, because I've had some questions around all of this. It's something that I've definitely touched on, but we haven't really delved into it. And I mean, you were by my side through all the ups and downs. Going through all the different battles, dragging me to doctors left, right and centre, some very strange alternative medicine practitioners. And I thought we'd just deep dive into it all. So firstly, do you want to give a little bit more of a background about your chronic illnesses? Because I think that's something that going into this podcast, I think people should be aware of, because I was 5, I think, when I got you really suddenly felt really ill, and that was very much out of the blue.
Well, it really started when you were 2, and they kept saying to me that I was just chronically exhausted because you didn't sleep at night. And
basically terror child over here.
Yes, and then I got food poisoning that led to basically reactive arthritis, which turned into chronic inflammatory autoimmune disease, and it is spiraled off into lots of different other autoimmune diseases as these things happen. And I also think I haven't been diagnosed with a load of stuff. I would sit in appointments with you and think, oh, I've got that one as well.
We're
PCOS.
Sure you've got POTS and EDS. That is something that we've definitely, undoubtedly.
But I don't want them to be diagnosed. I've got enough of my own.
Yeah, it was an ongoing joke growing up of collecting illnesses. You'd collect all the diseases. I was collecting the syndromes. So we were seeing how many we could tick off. But yeah, definitely, sometimes it just gets to the stage where you're just ticking boxes for the sake of ticking them, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't want any more. And I just, anyway, but I kept coming back to when you were 5, I ended up bedridden for 3 or 4 months, and then could barely walk. It took me a long time to get back to walk. And actually, the only thing that really helped me was I had this amazing physio who I did hydrotherapy with, and it's coming back to your exercises actually. Yeah. She really encouraged me, and she was something I'd look forward to every week. And to begin with, I'd have to get a wheelchair when I got to the entrance of the hospital, and so I could actually get in the pool. And eventually I managed to walk part of the way, then all the way. And then the first time I did that, I couldn't really do anything in the pool. But it sort of built it up to, and I think looking back, I was lucky to find someone who helped me into exercise.
Yeah, unknowingly.
Unknowingly. So I say people are lucky they have you to look at and to look at your journey and to stop, and it's not a fumbling around. You've got some much more clear advice and experience you can give to people.
Yeah, I remember just quickly with the wheelchair. Do you remember going on holiday with the wheelchair? A bit of a family entertaining holiday, and Dad chucked you in the pool.
He did. He also he just decided to wheel me down to the pool and then just tip me in the pool, and everybody around the pool could not believe the fact he'd done this. And then the other thing was we were going down this path and you were sitting on my lap, and he decided to give us a big push and then let go. And it was on a slight slope, and then he couldn't catch us. And I was so angry with him.
That.
Yes, no, I was very angry with him. He did catch me. But being in a wheelchair,
we had our fun.
You do have your fun.
Had a lot of laughs, didn't we?
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, so with my first falling ill, a lot of it started off the back of what we think was a stomach virus. It was an awful stomach virus. It's weirdly, we're in the room where I think I spent so much time at the moment, which is quite nice that we're actually filming it here. It's a lot is coming back to me, and I think I've realised how much as well I blocked out a lot of this period of my life, and why I don't necessarily speak about it all that much, because it was a horrible, horrible time period. So it was literally, I think it was about October, November 2013.
Yes, that would be right.
When it all kind of happened, I was really fit, doing every sport under the sun, playing hockey, multiple times a day, every day of the week. And then suddenly had this horrible stomach virus. And it's like, I just never bounced back. I remember I got over the stomach virus and then we went back to school. And I was just absolutely ruined. I just couldn't get through a day. I couldn't get through any of it.
No, I can remember we went to see this very weird doctor, Dr. Figgleson, do you remember, at the local GP surgery. And he was a very strange doctor, but actually he was a very, very good doctor. And he actually said to me, I think she's got post-viral fatigue. He didn't say chronic fatigue. He said, I think this is going to take a long time to get over. But that was all I was left with, and that's what all you were left with. And it was just like, well, what do we do? And there was no one to turn to.
No, and I was off school then. I kept trying and trying. And I was always very smart. I was always going through school. I was always, like, I loved learning. So
you were always top of the class.
Yeah,
I think you were one of those irritating girls, actually. You were good at sports. You were good at arts. You were always top of the class. You were pretty and people liked you. But I think some of them hated you as well because you were so good at everything.
No. But I think going through school, I think I found it so frustrating because I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I wasn't functioning in the way that I wanted to function. And I think that the frustration that caused me, I found so difficult because it was like everything I was doing was not a true representation of what I was actually capable of. It was like I was functioning at 10% capacity at all times. And it was just, I found it so difficult going through all of that. So ended up being off school. The teachers would send me some of the work. I'd do little bits and pieces. They'd send me the priority. And to be fair, the school were brilliant. And I would not have got through those years of school had it not been for the school. Because I still to this day, I never went back into school part-time, but just skipping ahead, I have no idea how I got through my GCSEs.
But also, when you were taking your GCSEs, my mum, your granny, who you were incredibly close to, died. And this happened just before.
I was going to get onto that. Well, it wasn't even just that, though, because I lost all 3 remaining grandparents within the space of 7 months. So I think this is, Granny, she kind of tutored me for a lot of school and stuff anyway, didn't she? She loved helping me with my homework. I spent a lot of time with her after school and stuff as well. So it was that new year, wasn't it? So 2014, so that had all happened. It had all started end of 2013. 2014, Grandad died in March. And that was the first one. And I remember Granny turning to me. That was the first proper death and grief that I had experienced that I could really remember, because my other grandmother had died when I was very little. And I remember Granny turning to me being like, it's okay, I've got you, I'm always going to be here. And I am still bitter to this day to her for saying that, because it was only a matter of months later, just after her 80th birthday party, her and Baba, so my granddad on that side, the two of them ended up in hospital on the same day. And you couldn't make it up at this point. The two of them got a very early phone call, wasn't it? Suddenly we were rushed into Southmead and ended up they were both in hospital together. Baba had pneumonia and died a couple of days later, and Granny was diagnosed with terminal bowel cancer. And it had literally gone from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. So it was, and that was all within the space of, that was March to August.
Can I just say, you also forgot one thing, that you had to get rid of your pony because you couldn't ride your pony. And the day that we sold your pony was the day that Grandad died. So that
remember.
It was a double whammy. I just think that whole year for you was you were trying to get better through this chronic illness, and suddenly you were,
just
all your rocks in your life had just disappeared.
Life as I knew it had just gone. And it was a very, very dark place. I was extremely low. I was sent through all the chronic fatigue, so we were pushed into the chronic fatigue unit and stuff like that. They were just like, well, a lot of it's in your head, and a lot of it, they sent me to all these psychiatrists, and I was severely depressed through growing up. Like, I really was. I think looking back on it now, I don't think I realised I knew I was not in a good place, but it's now that I don't function like that, you know, I spent a lot of time crying in school, at home, that I spent a lot of time crying, and I just couldn't see any future. I didn't see any hope. I just felt completely like that was it. I just did not see a way forwards. I was extremely ill. I'd lost 3 grandparents. I'd lost my horse. I was really struggling through school. A lot of people were telling me that I was skiving, I was being bullied. The hour that they'd see me going to school, for example, when I was able to get back in part-time, I'd be there for an hour, I'd give a little bit of energy for an hour, and then they'd be like, well, why are you going home? But they didn't see the fact that I'd come home and I could barely get off the sofa for the rest of the day. And the whole time period, it was just
also,
awful.
you used to wear your school shirts, and you'd go into school and you'd get
the hot
flushes, and I'd pick you up and your back would be dripping wet.
Yeah.
It was a really hard time, because I mean, obviously
I
was going through my grief, and I felt like I wasn't there enough for you, and you were going through all this as well as your chronic illness, and it was a very tough time. I think it was very bleak. It was. Yeah.
And I think there's no looking past that. It was just shit. Like, that was just the bottom line of that period of my life. It was just shit. And I think for a very long time, I did not have any hope. I didn't have any idea how to move forwards. And then I was diagnosed with PCOS, and we were just like, because I always struggled horrifically around my periods, and that side of things and stuff as well, that just all the medication that they put me on made me feel so much worse. And again, it was like we finally got the diagnosis. We've had that at that point, such a relief that we had this diagnosis, and then for that just to end up being
just part of it. It was just a tiny little bit.
Tiny bit of it, and all the meds that they put me on had made me feel so much worse. Again, it just felt like I got my hopes up to be let down again. And we went and saw these different doctors every time. And I know a lot of people come to me saying that, like, they're scared of being let down again. I have been there. I have been there so many times. The amount of hopes that doctors
I dragged you to because I was so desperate, and I think other mums will identify this, I was so desperate to get you well again that I really wanted to try anything. And we spent a fortune on sort of taking you to these wacky doctors. Some of them I can remember. There was a guy who made you stand on a machine, and then it printed out all these different colours, and he did something. I can't even remember what he did with those.
It was very strange.
And then there was another woman who put these weird electrodes on your head, and then said you were allergic to wheat or something. I don't know. I mean, the whole thing was completely random when you look back, and then somebody else got.
Remember the chiropractor, and I fainted at the chiropractor. He didn't believe me I was going to faint. Should listen to that one. If I'm going to tell you I'm going to faint, I'm going to faint.
I dragged you all over the country, and I dragged you to every doctor I could think of, just because as a parent I wanted you to get better, and I couldn't bear to see you like this. And I think it is so frustrating as a parent that you can't, you want to fix your child. You don't want them to be ill. You don't want to see them going through this horrible thing. And I think it made it worse because I knew how it felt, but I just felt I was older, and I felt somehow I was more equipped because at least I'd had some experience in life, where you were starting it so young. And I think it's very painful for parents and children. That whole.
But I think it created, like, we definitely got into some arguments. I definitely blamed you when I was dragged to some horrible tests. I remember absolutely being like, how dare you put me through this? And I know, looking back at it now, I must apologise for all of the crap that I put you through in some of those horrific doctor's appointments. But it is like, I think it's hard as a parent because, like you said, you want to fix, but it's not your job to fix. And I think it's so hard to actually detach yourself, because I think in so many ways, when a child feels like they need to be fixed, it continuously reaffirms how awful they are, how not normal they are. It makes them feel so different, so unique, so out of the ordinary. And as a teen, all you want to do is kind of just be able to be a teen.
Be part of the pack.
Yeah, be part of be normal. And the more I think you try to fix things, the worse it can feel. And that is some advice I think, like, looking back on us, I think trying to fix it, you can't fix it.
No.
You can't. That's just the bottom line of it. But just recognizing that and instead working together as a team to a better picture is really important. Now, again, I think something to bring up here as well that I actually was speaking to a client's mum about recently. She was saying, so I was speaking to this client's mum, and her son is 13, and she was saying about how it's really hard to, some doctors are being like, oh, you'll just grow out of it. And it's really hard then as well to have that balance between being like, no, this is, for example, POTS, chronic fatigue, things like that. These are lifelong conditions that need to be managed. And it's how you go about handling that with a young adult or a teen or a child, and actually being able to speak to them, being like, you know, it's not giving them hope that it's going to get better, but also being realistic and having that balance, I think is so difficult, especially in those early phases when it feels like the whole world is against you when you're so ill. And I just want to speak a little bit about that and how we managed that side of things together.
I think it was after sort of manically travelling around the country and seeing every doctor and weirdo that we could think of. It was, you know, some of them were very good, but they didn't actually help really.
No, we learned a lot.
But we did learn a lot, and I think what we took from it eventually, when we, you know, I felt like I calmed down and stepped back a bit, and then you started thinking about things that you could do, and I started thinking things about I could do to support you, and I think it became a bit more of a mutual. And sort of letting you go a bit and thinking, actually, you made a decision, like, right, I'm going to start walking. And then actually you used to do little runs.
Me,
And then I just said, well, okay. And I just sort of let you go. And then you said, I want to go and learn to go to a gym. And we found somebody who'd take you on, and because you're a bit young.
The best, you know, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So it's listening to your teenager or your, you know, and trying to let go and step back a bit. So as you say, you're not trying to fix them all the time, that they can take some responsibility.
I think it's so important, because again, and I think that's why I grew up so quickly. And even now everyone says, like, you sound like you're so much older than what you actually are. Because, and all growing up through my teens and everything, everyone always said the same. I think it's because from such a young age, I had so much responsibility that I had to take on my health that I don't think anyone else as a teen I even had to think twice about. And I think it did make me grow up. But in many ways, I think that was really a blessing. And like you said, rather than trying to fix things, it's working together and listening to each other as to what they actually need, because I think in a lot of cases, if you actually sat down and had an open conversation, parent to child, you'd hear a lot about what each other needs, but you've got to be willing to actually listen and take that on. Whereas I think it's so easy, like you said, to just want to fix them and just throw everything at it, but in a lot of cases that's not what people actually need.
Taking a step back.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's also, I think for me, it was also realising that I had a grief about you being ill. It was like my grief of me being ill and what I had to, you know, let go of and change my life to fit around. But then I still ended up having a very full life, and you having a very full life. So I think it's sort of, it's having to, I think as a parent, you need to let that go and just say, right, okay, they're not. I used to think, well, why isn't she just, you know, fit and healthy like her best friend, you know? But then actually looking at some of your best friends, they have their own issues. You know, everybody has issues.
Exactly.
You know, and it's just we all have different issues to bear. That's what I've come with it, really.
I agree. And my issues have made me to who I am. Yeah. I always come back to that, because I wouldn't change what I do, who I am, the people that I have around me, my circle, my friendships, for anything. And that includes my chronic illness, because it has taught me so much through the journey. And I think as well, just growing up with it, it is such a mental battle. It is so difficult. It is so challenging. But when you're going through, being a teenager is not easy as it is. I think anyone will relate to that. Being a teenager is not easy as it is, but actually growing up, and it forces you to have to grow up, and it's managing your expectations just because life doesn't look how you expect it to look. And I think it's so easy as well when you're in the teens, like I said previous, is, you know, you go to school, you go sixth form, college, uni, get a job. Like, it's very like, you know, it's your life is set up for you, and it may not look like that, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a better option out there for you. And in my case, it certainly was. And maybe it will take a bit more time to find it. Maybe it will take a bit more time. But just because your life isn't going how it's expected to, things happen for a reason. I've always kind of been a believer in that. I've always had to be a believer in that, because so many things in my life have happened for a reason, because it's opened up the next door, the next chapter, the next opportunity. And I think I'm very grateful for the fact that I had that chronic illness, that I didn't go to school, that I fell into exercise, that I fell into sport, that I truly found myself after school, after going through years of bullying, years of challenging, feeling so depressed, literally just feeling like I had no soul at all in anything. And then just coming out the other side and just suddenly thriving and just building up and building that momentum up, I think, over the past sort of 6 years has just been, I'm sure for you, it's been quite something to watch.
Well, it's amazing, because you've been really inspirational, and I think to see how you've really helped change so many people's lives, I think that's such a gift.
Yeah.
And I think you've done that from digging through your own experience and learning and bringing out skills and knowledge to all these people, but you really feel it, you really know it, you know, and that's what comes over that, and that's why you've been able to help people.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think it is just, I'm very grateful for my chronic illness to be able to have that experience. And I've had consultants say it to me before, that they, you know, they can help people, but they haven't been through it at the end of the day. Like Boone Lim said it to me. He was like, I haven't been through it. He was like, I can empathise with them as much as I can, but he was like, I don't have it at the end of the day, and I get it firsthand. And that's why I think I find it even more fulfilling, because I feel those wins like they're my own, because I've been in that situation. I know what it's like to not be able to walk up the stairs. I know what it's like to not be able to go out and have a meal with your friends. I know what it's like to not be able to do all of those things, and then to start doing them again. I get that feeling and how incredible it is. So I think it's just staying strong during those times, and just the tough times pass, but so did the good ones. And I posted on my story strangely this morning, because I had a really rough week last week with my stomach, and I mean, some of the more recent stomach appointments and stuff we've had have been challenging, to say the least, and I've again continued to be rather resilient in those doctor's appointments and tell them exactly what I'm going to do.
I think abrasive more than resilient, I think.
Stubborn. I've been called stubborn a lot over the years, I think, to put it simply. But in many ways, I think my stubbornness is what's got me to where I am. It's that absolute
determination. You are very determined. You always were very determined. I think that started from, I can remember when you were 1, I put some clothes out for you, and you went to your drawers. You opened the drawers, put those clothes back, and took your own clothes out. And I thought, oh God, here we go. And it's only gone from strength to strength, your determination and independence.
And I think it's helping support, if you are a mum or a teen going through that, supporting each other to have that determination, that strength, that resilience. And not always reaffirming those bad days and telling people how crap it is, and like recognizing the crap situation together.
But the laughing, because I used to get to the point when you fainted, you'd go to me, you'd almost just look at me, and I actually got to the point where I could catch you, and then we'd laugh about it afterwards, because people were going, oh, how did you know? I went, she just gave me the look.
Do you remember the panic button in the local GP surgery?
You're having a blood test, and you had a fit,
Yeah, I told them I was going to faint. You were going, you're not going to faint. You cannot faint. You are not going to faint.
But you had more than a faint. You did have a bit of a fit. And so the nurse was really ambidextrous. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, she managed to get her foot on the panic button while holding you, and I managed to hold you so you didn't fall off the chair.
I came round to the entire doctor's surgery worth of doctors running into the room, me having a fit on the floor. It was a very traumatic experience, and people wonder why I didn't like needles. So
you've overcome that now.
Exactly. So yeah, it was a rather traumatic time, but
Yes.
the laughter that we had in hospitals and in surgeries, I think you really became such a rock for me. Do you remember when I had the stomach surgery and I called you in the middle of the night? I remember that to this day, being like, Mum, I have no idea how I'm going to get through the night. I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to get through it, because that was the worst pain to this day that I've ever experienced. That first night, and they had me on all the painkillers, and it was just, and again, I remember you called me and just talking me through some breathing exercises. I just sat on the phone to you for half an hour or however long it was. It's just getting through all of that together. And then we had a lot of laughter and, through all of it, wasn't it? It's just...
Yeah. And some of it's, because I used to do the healing and visualization. And I can remember doing some visualizations with you. Like you used to get really worried. And when you used to go to bed, I said, right, remember to put all your worries in a ball and you can bounce...
Chuck them down the road.
You can either chuck them down the road, the ones you don't want to come back, and they can go, or you can put them on a ball and pick up the worries you want for the morning, and then they'll be there in the morning, but you need to let go of them now. And just little things like that. And I just think it becomes an individual thing for a family, or, that you pick your visualizations, you pick the things that you can laugh about, because you do have horrible times and it's not pleasant, but then there are some really funny and positive things.
Exactly, and it's just working through it together as a team, and I think I've been very, very lucky through all of that. Even now, just some of our conversations, I think we're absolutely cracking ourselves up, don't we?
I think your dad sometimes gets it and sometimes he thinks, oh my God.
The poor man having to deal with it. But yeah, it's been very special. I think we're very, very lucky that our relationship has been what it has been.
And survived through this.
Survived through wanting to kill each other on multiple occasions.
I think that's a normal teenage thing, though, in growing up as well, on top of all the...
You add a chronic illness into the mix. It's definitely had our challenges. There was a number of doors slammed, I can tell you, over the years, and tantrums. But from all of us, I think, may I add, I don't think I can just hold my hand up to individually causing a lot of them. I think Dad and you definitely had your fair share too, on the odd occasion. I think we all riled each other up. We were a very close family, so I think naturally. But yeah, anyway, I think we'll end that there. But thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's really lovely.
And of course, as per usual, like, subscribe, and if you have any other questions or any other topics that you'd like us to cover, then please just comment them below or drop me a message.